The stars were quiet that night. Captain Ryan Hale stood by the cracked viewing glass of the wrecked Odyssey 9, staring into a sky filled with strange constellations. The ship was no longer moving. Its engines were dead, and its communication array had been torn apart by the violent storm that dragged it into this unknown part of space. He tried his radio again. Static. No answer. Just the hum of dying power cells. Ryan took a deep breath. "So it's just me then," he said softly, his voice echoing in the silence. He had survived the crash by pure luck. The ship had entered a wormhole that appeared suddenly near the Orion expanse, something no human had ever recorded. When he woke up, the others were gone, either missing or worse. The planet he had fallen on was strange. The air was breathable, the gravity light, but everything glowed faintly, as if the world itself had a pulse. He left the ship's remains and stepped onto the silver-blue soil. Plants shimmered like glass. The wind whispered with a musical hum. It was beautiful but unsettling. He checked his wrist computer. The system couldn't recognize the location. It showed only one word: unknown. Ryan walked toward a ridge where he could see the horizon. In the distance, tall, crystal-like towers shone in the sunlight. Civilization. Maybe, he thought, there was hope. He moved carefully, keeping his emergency beacon on his back. Hours later, he reached a wide valley surrounded by large rock formations. That's when he saw them. Tall, elegant figures moving in patterns, their skin faintly luminous, their eyes glowing like distant stars. They were not human. Ryan froze. The beings noticed him immediately. They moved with grace, silent and fast. Within moments, he was surrounded by 6 of them. Each wore thin armor that looked like flowing silver fabric. Their faces were sharp and beautiful, but their expressions were unreadable. One of them spoke in a melodic language he didn't understand. Another pointed a glowing spear toward his chest. The tip vibrated with energy. Ryan raised both hands slowly. "I come in peace," he said, even though he knew they couldn't understand him. They spoke again, this time more curious than hostile. A soft pulse of light appeared in the air, scanning his body. The leader, a tall woman with long, flowing white hair, stepped forward. She pressed a small crystal against her temple, and suddenly Ryan heard a voice in his head. "Strange being," it said in broken English. "What are you?" Ryan blinked in surprise. "I'm human, from Earth." The alien tilted her head. "Human," she repeated slowly, tasting the word like it was new. "You are weak?" He gave a small, tired smile. "Not exactly." Before he could explain, one of the soldiers jabbed her spear into the ground. A shockwave of blue energy surrounded Ryan, locking him in place. He tried to move but couldn't. The pressure was immense. It felt like invisible chains squeezing his muscles. Ryan gritted his teeth. His training as a soldier and astronaut kicked in. He steadied his breathing. Slowly, he pushed against the invisible field. His veins strained, his muscles burned, and with a sudden shout, he forced his arms apart. The blue energy cracked, then shattered like glass. The alien warriors gasped. No one had ever broken a psionic restraint by physical force. The leader stepped back, her eyes wide. Ryan fell to one knee, exhausted but alive. "I told you," he said between breaths. "Not weak." The leader looked at him with a new expression, respect mixed with disbelief. She turned to her companions and spoke rapidly in their language. The others lowered their weapons. A moment later, 2 of them approached Ryan and lifted him to his feet gently. "You will come," the leader said. "Our queen must see this." Ryan nodded. He didn't have much of a choice, but part of him was curious. He had read about countless alien theories back on Earth, but none described beings like these. They looked half organic, half energy. Their technology seemed to grow out of their armor instead of being built. Everything was graceful, beautiful, and alive. They led him through the valley to a strange craft shaped like a shimmering crescent. It hovered silently, powered by an invisible force. Ryan stepped inside and felt the temperature change immediately. The walls were warm and pulsing like a heartbeat. The floor glowed beneath his boots. The leader introduced herself. "I am Commander Avalyn of the Alari Guard," she said through the translator crystal. "You are under the care of the Alari Empire." Ryan gave a polite nod. "I'm Captain Ryan Hale of Earth's Exploration Fleet. I didn't mean to enter your territory. My ship was pulled here by accident." Avalyn watched him carefully. "Accident or fate," she said. "The Queen will decide." The journey lasted only minutes, but when they exited the craft, Ryan was stunned. The Alari capital city, Alarion, rose before him like something out of a dream. Towers of light stretched toward the sky. Floating bridges linked entire districts, and energy streams danced like rivers through the air. The Alari themselves moved gracefully in groups, glowing softly as if every person carried a star inside them. Crowds turned to look at the human as he walked through the streets. Their eyes were full of curiosity. Children whispered. Some adults frowned, while others smiled faintly. To them, Ryan looked primitive, his body heavy, his movements slow compared to their light steps. Yet they had seen what he did to Avalon's psionic field. No machine or alien had ever done that. He was escorted into a massive hall filled with blue light. At the center stood a tall throne made of crystal vines. Upon it sat Queen Saraline, her presence calm but commanding. Her long silver hair shimmered like mist, and her eyes were deep violet, glowing faintly as if they could see through time itself. Avalon bowed. My queen, we found this being near the crash site. He broke the psionic seal with physical strength. The queen raised a brow. Impossible. Ryan stepped forward, bowing slightly in return. Your Majesty. My name is Ryan Hale, I mean no harm. Saraline's gaze was sharp, studying every movement he made. You are the Who man? Yes, he replied. From a distant planet called Earth. She stood slowly and approached him. The air seemed to hum around her. Your body is solid. Your energy field is strange. No psionic signature. How did you break Avalon's bind? Ryan shrugged. I just pushed until it stopped working. The queen's lips curved slightly. Fascinating. You rely only on muscle, not energy? Muscle, mind, and will, Ryan corrected quietly. That answer made Saraline pause. She waved her hand and a small hovering orb appeared. You will stay as our guest, she said. But understand, many will not believe what they saw. They will test you. Ryan nodded. I understand. As guards led him to his quarters, he could feel hundreds of eyes watching him from the shadows. Some curious, some doubtful, and some fearful. The Alari were a race that valued logic, control, and mental strength. A creature who could resist their power was beyond imagination. Inside his room, Ryan sat by a glowing window overlooking the city. For the first time since the crash, he let himself rest. The alien sky shimmered with 2 moons and streaks of blue auroras. It was peaceful, almost comforting. He thought of Earth, its oceans, its noise, its warmth. He didn't know if he'd ever go back, but a strange thought came to him. Maybe this was where he was meant to be, not as a prisoner, but as something new. Somewhere deep in the city, Avalon reported to the Queen again. He is only flesh and bone, yet he broke the unbreakable. Queen Saraline looked out her window toward the horizon. Perhaps, she said softly, we have just met a being that even our minds cannot measure. Far below, Ryan looked up at the same sky and whispered, whatever this world is, it's not ready for what a human can do. The alien night answered with silence. But the stars above seemed to shimmer a little brighter, as if they already knew this human was about to change everything. Morning light spread across the city of Alarion, its twin suns painting the crystal towers in soft gold. The air hummed with quiet energy as the Alari people began their daily rituals. For them, the mind was sacred and power came from within, from focus, balance, and harmony of thought. But today, their thoughts were not calm. Rumors of the human had spread across every district. Some said he was a creature of chaos. Others whispered he was a gift from the stars. The Queen's court was alive with questions. How could something without psionic energy break a telepathic restraint? How could flesh resist pure thought? Ryan Hale didn't know any of this. He stood in a large training hall surrounded by glowing rings of light. His escort, Commander Avalon, watched from a distance as several Alari scientists examined him with floating crystals. Each crystal shone, scanned, then dimmed in confusion. No psionic field, one muttered. Yet impossible strength, said another. His energy comes from motion, not thought. Ryan stretched his arms, trying to ignore their stares. You know, he said with a small grin. If you keep scanning me like this, I'll start charging rent. Avalon tilted her head, confused. Charging rent? Ryan chuckled softly. It means you owe me for the trouble. The Alari didn't laugh, they rarely did, but a few scientists smiled faintly. Avalon turned away, hiding a small smirk. There was something about this human's humor. Strange, yet oddly warm. After the tests, Evelyn led him to the center of the hall. "The Queen wishes to test your strength and endurance," she said. "If you pass, you will be allowed to explore the city. If you fail—" She paused. "You will be confined," Ryan shrugged. "All right then. What kind of test?" Evelyn raised her hand and 4 training drones appeared floating in the air. They were sleek silver spheres with glowing red centers, designed for Aelari warriors to practice combat. "You will face these drones," she said. "They use controlled psionic energy, strong enough to stop most beings. Do not hold back." The drones activated, surrounding him. Ryan took a steady breath, remembering his military training. His body wasn't enhanced by any special power, just years of discipline and human determination. The first drone fired a pulse of blue light. Ryan rolled aside fast and precise. The second came down with a shock beam. He ducked, grabbed a metal rod from the floor and swung it upward. The drone shattered into sparks. Aelari observers gasped. Ryan moved again, jumping onto a glowing platform, twisting mid-air, and striking the third drone with a powerful kick. It spun wildly, crashed into another, and exploded. The final one charged its energy, releasing a bright wave meant to knock him down. Instead, Ryan stood firm. He gritted his teeth, stepped forward, and pushed through the blast like walking through a storm. The drone overloaded and fell to the ground. Silence filled the hall. The Aelari warriors watching couldn't believe it. No one had resisted a psionic wave head-on. It wasn't supposed to be possible. But the human had done it, not through magic, not through energy, but sheer will and strength. Ryan wiped the sweat from his brow. "That it?" he asked calmly. Evelyn's expression softened. For the first time, she spoke not as a commander, but as someone in awe. "How do you move like that? How can your body bear such pressure?" Ryan looked around at them. "Because humans don't quit," he said simply. "We push even when we shouldn't. That's how we survive." The hall stayed silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, some of the young warriors began to bow their heads, a sign of respect among the Aelari. Evelyn didn't stop them. Later that day, Ryan was escorted to a new chamber, part laboratory, part lounge. The Queen had ordered that he be studied but treated as a guest. He was given clothes made from Aelari fiber, soft, glowing slightly under the light. It felt strange but comfortable. As he sat by the window, Evelyn approached with a small plate of food. The meal looked like glowing fruit and soft silver bread. "Eat," she said. "You will need strength for tomorrow's challenge." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Another one?" "The Queen wishes to see your limits," Evelyn explained. "You will be tested in the gravity core." "Gravity core?" Ryan repeated. "Sounds heavy." Evelyn blinked. "It is," she said seriously. "Very heavy," Ryan chuckled. "Figures." The next morning he was taken deep below the palace to a chamber unlike anything he had seen before. It was a massive dome with a bright sphere of light floating at the center. Streams of energy radiated outward, bending the air. The floor itself seemed to shift with pressure. "The gravity core simulates any condition," said one of the scientists. "We use it to test psionic resistance. Let us see what you are truly capable of." Ryan stepped into the center. The air grew heavy at once, pressing down on his body. It felt like standing on a mountain with weights tied to every limb. The Aelari watched carefully, recording every movement. "Begin," said the Queen's voice from above. The gravity doubled. Ryan's knees bent, his muscles straining. Sweat rolled down his forehead. The ground beneath him trembled slightly, as if the chamber itself was testing his resolve. "Level 2, said the scientist. The force grew stronger. Ryan's breath came out rough. His heart pounded hard, but he didn't stop. He dug his heels into the floor and pushed back. His training in low-oxygen drills and resistance suits had prepared him for this. He remembered the long days back on Earth, the weight training, the survival missions, the endless effort to prove humanity could endure the stars. "You think this will break me?" he muttered under his breath. "You don't know humans, wait, level 3, the scientist shouted. Now even Aelari psionics struggled to stand at this intensity, but Ryan did not fall. His muscles shook violently, but his eyes were steady. He pushed harder, straightening his back inch by inch. The ground cracked beneath his boots. Queen Saraline watched from her high balcony, her eyes full of quiet wonder. "Enough," she said at last. "He has proven his endurance." The gravity field shut down. Ryan collapsed to one knee, panting heavily but smiling. "You call that heavy?" he said weakly. Evelyn rushed forward to help him up, her usual strict tone replaced by concern. "You could have died," she said. "Maybe," Ryan answered. "But dying isn't the same as giving up." The words echoed across the chamber. The scientists recorded them, whispering among themselves. The Queen, still watching, spoke softly to her advisor. "He defies logic. There is no psionic field, no measurable energy, and yet he bends the world by will alone." Her advisor nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is the true strength of humanity." That evening, Ryan was allowed to walk freely in the gardens of the palace. The air was cool, and the glowing trees reflected soft blue light over the ponds. A few Elari girls training nearby watched him quietly. One of them, Lyra, approached shyly. "Human," she said, her voice curious but respectful. "You fought the drones and the core. How did you not fear pain?" Ryan looked at her kindly. "Fear's always there," he said. "You just don't let it stop you. You move anyway." Lyra thought about that. "In our world, fear means weakness," he smiled. "In mine, fear means you're alive. Courage is what you do despite it." The young Elari bowed her head, impressed. "Maybe we have misunderstood strength." Ryan didn't reply. He looked up at the night sky instead, at stars that were not his own. Somewhere Earth was out there, small and distant but still shining. He wondered if anyone was searching for him. Behind him, Lyra whispered to another girl, "He is not like us." "He is different," the other replied softly. "Yes, and yet when I see him I feel as if our minds are small." Far above, Queen Caroline stood on her balcony watching them both. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully.
"He must be tested further," she murmured.
"If such strength exists without the mind, then what would happen when the two are combined?" Her voice carried a hint of curiosity and something else, something deeper. The beginning of respect. Ryan, unaware of her words, stood by the water's edge. The reflection of the stars shimmered on his face. He didn't know what the next test would bring, but he was ready. He always was. For him, it wasn't about proving power. It was about surviving, and showing these beings that the human spirit could rise higher than logic, higher than fear, and higher than even the stars themselves. And somewhere, in the heart of the Elari capital, a silent truth was spreading. The human was no longer a curiosity. He was a force the universe itself had to reckon with. The next sunrise over Ilarion was brighter than usual. The twin suns painted the city in gold and violet, and the air hummed with energy. Every tower, bridge, and balcony was filled with Elari citizens. Today was not an ordinary day. For the first time in centuries, the trial of the 1,000 spears would be held, and it would include a human. The trial was not a game. It was a sacred challenge among the Elari warriors, a ceremony that tested their strength, speed, and focus. Many had trained their whole lives to face it, but no one expected a being without psionic power to take part. And yet, here was Captain Ryan Hale, standing in the arena's center, surrounded by a glowing circle of energy. He looked around, seeing thousands of eyes watching from the stands. The air shimmered with light. At the far end, on her crystal balcony, Queen Caroline sat with calm authority. Beside her stood Commander Avalon, silent but watchful. Ryan adjusted the light armor they had given him. It wasn't human-made, but it fit surprisingly well. He took a slow breath. He didn't want to fight for glory. He just wanted to prove that he belonged here, that humanity's strength was more than muscle or weaponry. The Queen raised her hand. The arena went silent. "Human," her voice echoed, amplified by psionic energy. "You have shown endurance and courage, but words mean little in Ilarion. Today you will face the trial. If you endure it, you will earn our respect. If you fail, you will still be honored for your attempt." Ryan gave a small nod. "Understood, Your Majesty." Then the ground beneath him changed. The arena floor split open, revealing rows of tall, floating spears glowing in silver and blue. They surrounded him like a living storm. Avalon spoke from the sidelines. "Each spear moves with psionic command. They react to energy, speed, and intent. The trial has no mercy. Survive 3 cycles, and you will pass." Ryan looked at the swirling weapons and smiled faintly. 3 cycles. Sounds simple enough, but when the Queen dropped her hand, the first spear shot forward, fast as lightning. Ryan barely dodged it. Another came from behind, slicing through the air. Then 2 more. Within seconds, a storm of energy surrounded him. He ducked, rolled, and weaved between the glowing blades. His training from Earth kicked in, the reflexes built through endless drills and zero-gravity simulations. His movements were not elegant like the Ailari's, but sharp, instinctive, and real. The crowd gasped as he caught one spear mid-flight. Sparks burned his hand, but he used the weapon's own energy to redirect another attack. The two collided, exploding into shards of blue light. "Impossible!" shouted one of the Ailari observers. Ryan kept moving, sweat running down his face. The ground beneath him glowed hotter with every step. He could feel his muscles burning, his lungs fighting for air, but he didn't stop. He jumped, spun, and landed hard, using the fallen spear as a shield. Every moment his instincts told him one thing: keep moving, keep fighting. The first cycle ended with a blast of sound. The spears paused, hovering in the air. Ryan stood panting, his armor cracked, his knuckles bleeding slightly. He looked up at the Queen and raised an eyebrow. "That one was fun," he said, half smiling. Queen Saraline's expression didn't change, but deep in her mind something stirred. No being without psionic strength had ever survived the first cycle. "Begin the second," she said. This time the spears changed form. Their edges glowed red instead of blue, vibrating with twice the speed. They launched in waves, spinning faster than bullets. Ryan barely had time to react. One grazed his shoulder, sending sparks across his armor. He winced but steadied himself. "All right," he muttered. "Time to improvise." He reached for a broken spear shaft on the ground, twisted it, and used it like a staff. As the next wave came, he deflected one, then two, then spun the weapon in a wide arc. The impact sent a shockwave through the air. The Ailari crowd rose to their feet. Never before had anyone turned the weapons of the trial against themselves. One young warrior, Lyra, whispered to Avalon, "He fights with instinct, not training." Avalon nodded slowly. "Instinct. And heart. That is his strength." Ryan moved like a storm. The second cycle dragged on for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. Every strike came faster, every dodge closer. But he endured, eyes locked, breath steady. When the second cycle finally ended, the entire arena erupted in light. The spears froze midair, then dropped to the ground one by one. Ryan stood still, his chest heaving, his body trembling with exhaustion, but he was still standing. He looked up and managed a faint grin. "Two down!" Even Queen Saraline leaned forward, her calm mask cracking for the first time. "The human," she whispered. "He truly endures." Avalon bowed slightly. "He has not yielded, my queen." "Then we test the final cycle," Saraline said. The third cycle began with silence. The ground itself started to hum. The remaining spears floated again, but this time they merged together, forming one enormous spear made of pure light. It spun above the arena like a sun, pulsing with dangerous power. Ryan stared up, sweat dripping down his face. "Okay," he muttered. "That looks bad." From the stands, the Ailari could feel the pressure in the air. The weapon was not meant for mortals. It was a test of gods. Even psionic masters rarely lasted long under its weight. The glowing spear dropped like a thunderbolt. Ryan dove aside, the shockwave nearly throwing him off his feet. He could barely breathe. Every muscle screamed in pain, but he refused to fall. He tried to run toward the weapon's core, dodging bursts of energy. When another shockwave struck him, he hit the ground hard. His vision blurred. The crowd gasped. They thought it was over. But then, he remembered something his old commander once told him on Earth. When you think you've reached your limit, that's when you're only halfway there. Ryan pushed himself up, every nerve burning. He grabbed the broken spear shaft again, charged forward through the storm of energy, and drove it into the glowing weapon's center. The arena exploded in white light. When the light faded, Ryan was standing in the middle of the arena. The great spear shattered, the air still vibrating with power. His armor was in pieces, but his eyes were calm. Silence filled Ilarion. Then slowly the crowd began to rise to their feet. The Ailari didn't cheer often, but today they did. The sound echoed across the entire city. Queen Saraline stood from her throne. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice was clear. "You have completed the trial," she said. "And you did so without fear, without psionics, and without surrender. Tell me, human, what drives you to fight this way?" Ryan wiped blood from his cheek. "Simple," he said. "When everything seems impossible, humans don't stop. We fight for every second. We fight because we believe we can win, even when the universe says we can't." The Queen's gaze softened slightly. Then perhaps, she said, your strength is not of body but of spirit. Evelyn stepped forward and bowed to Ryan. You have earned the title of Unbending One, she said. Among us it means the one who cannot be broken. Ryan smiled faintly. Not bad. I've been called worse. Lyra, standing nearby, whispered to her friend, he doesn't fight for power. He fights to protect even when no one asks him to. That evening, the entire city glowed brighter than ever. The Elari had found something new in the human, something their centuries of psionic mastery had never shown them. Strength born not from energy, but from heart. As Ryan stood on a balcony overlooking the twin suns setting over the city, Evelyn joined him quietly. You changed them, she said softly. They thought strength was only of the mind. But you have shown another path. Ryan looked out over the horizon. Where I come from, we learn by surviving, he said. We fall, we get back up, and we never stop trying. Evelyn turned to him. Tomorrow the Queen wishes to meet you alone. She seeks to understand this will you speak of. Ryan nodded. Then I'll tell her. Not everything can be measured. Sometimes strength isn't about power. It's about refusing to break. As night settled over Ilarion, a soft wind carried the whispers of the crowd, words of awe and respect. For the first time in their history, the Elari looked at a human not as a lesser being, but as something greater, a living proof that the spirit of humanity could stand against any force in the galaxy. And as Ryan closed his eyes, resting after the long battle, one thought echoed in his mind. They've seen strength. Now it's time they learn why humans never give up. The great doors of the Crystal Palace opened slowly, and Ryan walked inside with calm steps. The hall glowed with silver light, the air humming softly with psionic energy. Every Elari present turned their gaze to him, the human who had passed every test they had thrown at him. At the end of the long hall stood Queen Saraline, her presence commanding and graceful. Her silver crown shone faintly, and her eyes, deep violet, watched him carefully. Captain Ryan Hale of Earth, she said, her voice echoing softly. You have proven your strength, courage, and mind, but I still cannot understand the source of your power. You are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most intelligent being I have met, yet you overcome all odds. I wish to see the truth of this human will myself. Ryan gave a small nod. If that's what it takes for you to understand, Your Majesty, I'll do my best. The Queen's lips curved slightly. Follow me. They walked together down a corridor filled with glowing walls. Strange symbols floated in the air, living energy that danced like stars. Soon they reached a wide chamber unlike anything Ryan had seen before. It was circular, filled with layers of light, and in the center stood a sphere of pure energy pulsing like a heart. This, said Saraline, is the psionic core. It amplifies thought, emotion, and will. Only those with strong minds can survive its presence. Those who are weak are lost within it. Ryan looked at the shining orb. And you want me to go inside that? I want you to face it, the Queen replied. If your human spirit is as strong as they say, this will reveal its truth. Ryan took a deep breath and stepped forward. The air grew heavy as the energy touched his skin. His vision blurred. Sounds faded into silence. A wave of power swept through him, pressing on his chest, testing his limits. In the glowing haze, he heard the Queen's voice. Focus your thoughts. The core responds to what lies inside you. If you're not certain of yourself, it will consume you. Ryan tried to stay steady. He thought of Earth, the oceans, the mountains, the faces of his lost crew. He remembered the laughter, the struggles, the pain of failure, and the courage that always pulled humanity forward. The core shone brighter. The light around him changed colors, blue, gold, red, shifting like a living storm. But then came whispers, soft, almost kind at first. You can't win. You are alone. Your people are gone. Ryan's knees trembled. His body felt weak, but he refused to give in. No, he said aloud. Humans don't stop when things get hard. We learn, we try again. We move forward. The storm roared louder. The pressure increased and his mind burned like fire. For a moment he thought he would break apart. But deep inside he remembered his mother's words when he was young. Strength isn't just in the body. Ryan, it's in the heart that refuses to give up. He shouted, not in anger but in sheer determination. I will not break. The core pulsed violently, and then everything went silent. When the light faded, Ryan stood still, breathing hard. The air around him shimmered with golden light. The core had changed color. It now glowed faint gold instead of pure white. The Queen stepped closer, her expression filled with awe. "It responded to you. It changed for you." Ryan blinked in confusion. "What does that mean?" "No one has ever made the core change," she said softly. "It reacts to thought, but it has never shown emotion. You made it feel hope." The Elari scientists and guards whispered among themselves, amazed. The Queen looked at Ryan for a long moment. "Now I understand. Your strength is not from your body or mind alone. It comes from the heart. The power to endure, to rise again, to believe even when reason says no." "That is what we lacked." Ryan smiled faintly. "Maybe we both have something to learn from each other." The Queen nodded. "Perhaps so. The Elari believed emotion was weakness, but now I see that emotion is also strength. You have changed how we see the universe, Captain Hale." As he left the chamber, Ryan felt a strange peace. For the first time, he wasn't just a lost human on an alien world. He was part of something bigger. He had shown them the truth of humanity, not through power, but through perseverance. Outside, the twin suns of Valerian began to rise, bathing the city in gold and silver. The Elari watched him in silent respect. They no longer saw him as an experiment, but as an equal, a friend and perhaps a guide. Days passed after the trial, and the city of Valerian felt different. The people no longer looked at Ryan with suspicion or curiosity. Now they greeted him with smiles and bowed heads. The story of the human who changed the core spread through every district, every hall, and every academy. Ryan became a symbol, a reminder that courage could exist without cruelty, and that kindness could be a strength. One morning, Lyra, the warrior he had once saved in battle, visited him. She carried a new uniform, colored half blue and half silver, the symbols of both Elari and Earth. "The Queen has decided," she said with a bright smile. "You will lead the first joint exploration team. We will travel together, Elari and human, across new systems. She wants you to name the mission." Ryan looked at the stars through the window. "Then let's call it Project Dawn. It's time both our worlds learn from each other." Lyra nodded proudly. "A perfect name." Preparations began immediately. Engineers rebuilt Ryan's old equipment, blending it with Elari technology. Ships that once ran on psionic energy now had engines adapted from human design, faster, stronger, more stable. During this time, Ryan trained alongside Elari pilots and scientists. He taught them teamwork, not just obedience. "A leader doesn't command," he told them. "A leader inspires." The Elari, who had always followed strict hierarchies, were amazed at how humans worked together as equals. They began to change their ways, learning that unity came from trust, not fear. Queen Saraline herself often visited the hangar to watch the progress. "You have done more for us than I expected, Captain Hale," she said one evening. "You gave us a new way to see power, not as control, but as connection." Ryan smiled. "You gave me a new way to see understanding, not as weakness, but as wisdom." When the day of departure came, the new ship, the Horizon Star, stood ready. It was a fusion of human metal and Elari crystal, glowing softly under the light of two suns. As Ryan stepped aboard, Lyra and the other explorers joined him. The Queen raised her hand in farewell. "Go, guardian of the core. Carry our hope beyond the stars." The ship rose slowly, engines humming like music. Below, the people of Ilarion cheered. For the first time in history, humans and Elari worked as one. As the stars stretched before them, Ryan stood at the front window, gazing into the endless dark that no longer felt lonely. He spoke quietly to himself. "Maybe this is what we were meant to do, not to conquer, but to connect." Lyra smiled beside him. "And you've already begun, Captain." The ship entered the light of a nearby nebula, shining bright like dawn breaking across the cosmos. In that moment, Ryan understood that humanity's greatest power was not technology or strength. It was the spirit that refused to stop believing, even when the universe seemed impossible to understand. And somewhere deep within the psionic core on Ilarion, the golden light pulsed softly as if echoing that same thought. Hope never dies.